Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
I'm stoked. This is great.
Okay, so the how I first actually found out about you was I was getting my nails done like forever ago by this woman named Kim Shook. And she
I was supposed to tell a story that my wife knows your best friend.
Yes.
Amy knows your best friend.
Knows Brianna Webb.
Yes.
And so I was talking to Bri, and Bri's like, yeah, her name's Amy, right? Yeah. And she was telling me that you guys had some fun night. I don't even know when.
She came to a show, I think.
She came to a show.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, at the Forum. And so I had known about you a long time ago.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I'm glad that we got connected on the Instagram.
On the Instagram.
The Instagrams.
The Instagram is, it's funny because that is how we, connected.
Yeah.
And I always have this love-hate relationship with Instagram.
Yeah.
Even though I usually just post really funny stuff, I don't, sometimes I'll put music content on there, but mostly it's almost
like funny videos.
It's like a meme page almost.
Yes, it is. It's fun.
But I have met so many rad, interesting people through Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like musicians that I'm really good friends with now and I play with all the time and record with, to guy that fixed my truck.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Seriously.
It's like, as much as I don't want to be on Instagram, I'm like addicted to it. I'm not on Facebook.
Me too.
I don't do Facebook.
I'm on everything.
Yeah.
I rarely use Facebook, and I don't look in the Messenger because it's a nightmare in there, the messages that I receive on there.
Yeah.
But Instagram has been a godsend. And honestly, most of the people that I've booked on this podcast have been through DMs. Yeah.
How funny
and
is
then we just end up, hitting it off, and it's great.
Yeah.
I met somebody on Instagram who ended up becoming one of my kind of Eskimos as far as getting sober,
Oh, wow.
and kind of, talked me into going to rehab years ago and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
For me, there's been a lot of really good things that have happened on Instagram.
I always say that Instagram is kind of like our generation's old, like they used to have a calling card. Like, hey, how do I get a hold of you? Before the internet and stuff, it was like, how do I get? Well, it's like now, it's like I feel like Instagram is like a calling card on steroids because you can actually, like, for a guy like me, like I'm a musician, so I can post videos of myself playing. And that's like a calling card. Like people can go, well, how does he play? We go, check out his Instagram. He's got videos of himself playing. And it's like, through that, I've gotten so much work. And I actually don't post a lot of my playing. I don't know why I don't.
You're probably like me, where you really don't want to have to like pimp yourself out, so to speak.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
And
where
the funny thing is, I don't really look at it as pimping out. I look at it like it's fun to play, and when I do it, I usually do it like with either like I've done a couple videos with my brother because my brother plays drums.
Oh, your brother Josh Freese, you mean?
Yeah, so like Josh, and he doesn't do videos either from playing. So the only besides like one other friend of mine, a drummer named Tosh, who is this ripping kid drummer that I found on Instagram, and only because he was following me, and then I saw he had a ton of friends, and I looked, and one time he posted his location was Fullerton, and I was like, whoa, that's where I live.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's where my studio is. So I DM'd him, and I go, dude, he's like 18 years old.
Oh my gosh.
He's been homeschooled. He's already been like 6 world tours, and he's like 18.
What?
Yeah, he's insane.
Who was he playing with?
He was playing with Nick West, the girl bass player with Prince.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
He's killer, but he's ripping, and it turns out that his house is literally I don't know, maybe 1 mile from my studio.
Oh my God.
And then like he doesn't have his driver's license. Like his mom drops him off. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then we become great friends. And I've done some videos with him, and then I've done some videos with my brother. And my brother hasn't really posted many videos. The only videos he's ever posted is just like him on. I think he's done like a couple of him. He set up some GoPros like when he was playing with 9 Inch Nails, and he's done a couple playing with Sting. But besides that, he hasn't done like an Instagram video. But we've done a few together. Yeah. And it's fun because it's like we don't really get a chance to play together much.
Well, yeah. You guys are kind of both off touring and busy and doing your own things.
Totally, in different circles and stuff. So it's like when we can. The only time, literally, pretty much the only time we play together is the Vandals Christmas show at the House of Blues every year.
Oh, how fun.
And that's been going on for like, 21, 22 years.
Oh, my God.
And that's like we always count on that show because that's our show.
You're like, okay, I'll for sure see you there.
We'll see you in December. And we always do a rehearsal, and we laugh, and it's really fun. And that band's obviously really funny and fun. And I've known those dudes. My brother's been in that band since think he's been like 18 or 19. So since I've been 16, so I've known those dudes like for 30 years.
Oh my God.
Almost.
Were they one of the first bands that you kind of played in?
It's the first CD I ever played on.
Wow.
Yeah, the very first.
That's so amazing. Not too shabby. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been fun, and it's kind of as funny as that band is. It's like, you know, they're this fun punk rock band from Orange County that they've stood the test of time. I mean, they still, like the one we just did this Christmas, they sold it out. House of Blues. You know what I mean? They're still able to do it.
They're like a SoCal staple. You know what I mean? I sometimes don't know. I'm like, to me, the Vandals are like this big punk rock band, but that's maybe because I grew up
in
here.
Southern California.
But I don't know as far as the rest of the country or anything, like how big they are. But but they're still around, and I'm and they don't. I love it.
It seems funny because they really don't have to put much effort into it.
Yeah.
Like everyone's got their gigs. Like Josh plays with Sting and plays on people's albums. The singer owns an alcohol distributing company. The bass player's a lawyer.
Oh wow!
And you know, like the guitar player played in Boingo and does like film scoring stuff. It's like they all have their jobs.
Yeah.
And then they just get together to do, you know, I don't know. They'll play maybe 10 shows a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah.
You
it's
know,
always interesting to see what creatives sort of do their side hustles become.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have to have a little bit of a hustle. You know what I mean?
Do. Absolutely.
I'm in the process of trying to figure out what that side hustle looks like. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And I think everyone does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I think that on some level, it's like right now I just started writing music for a TV show on Discovery Channel.
Oh, wow.
And it's awesome. It's so much fun. And I never really saw myself doing it. I love writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a studio. But a friend of mine, my buddy Corey, we were like, let's. He had a kind of an in with Discovery Channel, and it's a show called Wheeler Dealers, and it's a British car show, but it does really big and it does well in America. And he, like, you know, it's like, I swear, like this stuff always, like, you knowing Kim Shook, my wife knowing Brianna, it's like there's always this weird connection. Yep. He went to church, or he goes to church with the host of the show, this guy Anstead, who's married to that Christina on the Coast, that girl, that blonde girl she redoes the houses and stuff on Discovery Channel. And so they go to the same church, and he was like, hey, would you like to do some music? And then my buddy, he's a drummer, and he was like, the things that he can't do, I can do, and the things I can do, he can't do. And it was like, hey, do you want to do this together? So we just started this little side hustle.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
How fun.
It's really cool.
So when you're doing something like that, do they send you like what it looks like, and then you write along? It's really funny.
It happens. It's totally different every time. Like sometimes, like for Discovery Channel, they have a music library that has over 60,000, or this is what I was told. They have over 60,000 cuts. So they pull from their library that they own, and then they don't have to pay anyone.
Right.
And then but then what happens is it gets to be very cookie cutter, because they're nothing's written for the scene. Mm-hmm. Which, when something's written for a scene, like a motion picture, like there'll be a Tom Cruise motorcycle chase, and all of a sudden, as he turns, the music, and then when he stops, there's the music stops, and it gets more exciting, or it gets more somber.
Yes, it makes a big impact.
It makes a big impact. So this was like, I think, one of the first times that Discovery Channel has even hired people to score scenes, and the way that's working out with us right now. Like I did a movie one time. I used to play in Jules' band, and Jules' ex-husband was like a 7-time world champion bull rider.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Ty Murray. Mm-hmm. And I became like best friends with him when I was on tour with her. And then I got hired to write music for a documentary that I think it was like HBO or Showtime was doing for them. That it was the story of how they pulled bull riding out of the rodeo circuit and made it a sport by itself. So now you can go to the Honda Center, Staples Center, and see bull riding. Right. Mm-hmm. And these guys are like rock stars. And they hired like the production guy from the WWE. Mm-hmm. And they turned it, and there's explosions, and there's fire, and it's crazy. Well, it used to just be the last event at a rodeo. And what they do is they would hold you, captive at a rodeo for 9 hours while you're watching people like rope calves and stuff. And you had to wait to the end of the day if you want to see the Bull Riders, and
Right.
everyone wanted to see the Bull Riders. So they were like, how about that? So the Bull Riders were like, listen, we're like laying our lives on the line every day. We're you know, like the champion gets like $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
and the guys warming the bench on the Lakers are getting $500,000,
Mm-hmm.
and we're world class athletes giving our lives up every day. Let's pull this out and make this a sport. So they all did this handshake deal where like the top 10 bull riders in the world pulled out of the rodeo circuit, and they it was like a handshake deal.
Yeah.
These cowboys, and they said, we're going to start our own company, and it's what's the PBR today, which is the Professional Bull Riding Association.
Wow.
And they went in with like $10,000. They each put in $1,000, and they sold it. They sold a lot. I don't know if it was the entire company, but they sold it for like 10 years ago for like $90 million.
Oh my God.
And they'd gone in at $10,000.
Yeah,
to $90
and
million.
because they televise that stuff.
Oh
don't
yeah,
they? Yeah.
oh, it's
I mean,
all over.
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's, I mean,
and they
it's
sell out the
huge.
Staples Center and stuff.
Oh yeah, I believe
But so
it.
anyways, I got to score that movie, and when I did that, you were literally, they would give you the scenes with no music, and you would write to the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Where this Discovery Channel thing is, they're like, hey, for this next episode, we need something that sounds like we want something ska, but it's got to be like Madness ska, not No Doubt ska,
Uh-huh.
or you know what I mean? They'll tell you they'll tell you what you want
Uh-huh.
or what they want, and then and sometimes they'll even give you temp tracks.
Okay.
So they'll go like, hear this,
Something
we want
like
something
this.
like this, and then we do it, and then the way that they break it down, which is really cool, is instead of us writing the song, they always want like 90 seconds, like a minute and a half, so they chop it up however they want. So what we'll do is, instead of giving them 90 seconds of a song, you give them a mix, which will be 90 seconds of the song. But then they also will want every single track. So if they want, let's say they're racing a Ferrari, and then there's dialogue, but I have some guitar solo going
yeah,
on.
like too loud. Yeah.
So then
they can
just
take it
out the guitar solo,
Uh-huh.
and so they'll end up mixing stuff, and they'll cut it up how they want. But ultimately, it's what they want instead of what they have to use, because that's what's in their library.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which
know?
is so rad.
It's just rad.
That's
it's
just
rad.
a cool thing to get to
It's
do.
fun. And I can
know?
do it on tour. I do a lot of work on tour. I have like a little mobile like studio.
Yeah.
And so I can, and they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They think I'm at my studio at home,
Yeah.
And so it's like I because it's like with technology now. I mean, all you really need is a laptop and a microphone and it's like a guitar and a little keyboard, and you're set. You can do anything.
Yeah.
We're back in the
seriously.
day, like you had to go to a rad studio.
Yeah.
And spend tens of thousands of dollars. And now it's like,
there
forget
is
it.
so much freedom to be able to
amazing.
do, like I know,
But-
like the 1975 just recorded
that
like
band.
I love them too.
love that band.
It took me a while to get there. I'm not going to lie
I
about
freaked out
it.
because I bought their whole library when I discovered them. I was like, I'm gonna buy all their stuff. So I bought their stuff, and then I realized like their early stuff is very different.
Very different.
And
Yeah.
I was like, this is the same band.
Yeah.
I was like,
I think it
them a
took
lot.
them a minute to
find
really
their-
find their sound.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like they still like to really experiment. And they'll be like, you know what, we're going to just throw something at the wall. We're going to write a song like People,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
really kind of like a hardcore-ish
Yeah.
type like punk
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
But they won me over. They really did.
They're really good. And they're really musical.
They're
like,
so
and
good.
I'll listen to the production and stuff and the playing on some of their songs, and I go, wow, these guys are like great. They're
Mm-hmm.
really good. It's like, and they're so influenced. At least their last two records seemed like very 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Like Level 42, Scritti Politti, like they have a lot of 80s influences, but the playing is great. But what I really like about them is that it's not like I call it NAMM show playing,
Mhm.
which is for the people that know what the NAMM show is. It's like the convention at Anaheim Convention Center where all the musicians go,
Yes.
and then they all sit in there and they just rip as fast as they can. They play as fast as they can. Where it's like it's not, or they call it muso, where the guys are like prog rock or something, like dudes that are just ripping. It's like there are moments of that in their songs, but it's not distasteful, and that's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
To really, it's almost like Tool.
Yeah.
Like Tool, you'll listen to them and go, there's moments of their songs where you're like, this just sounds like a cool rock band, and then all of a sudden there'll be moments of their songs you're like, whoa.
Yeah, like your brain just
They
exploded.
just did a measure of 17. You know what I mean? And you're like, or they'll change their meter every other bar. It'll be 5/7. It'll be like they'll be in 5/8 and go to 3/8 that goes to it's like they'll change stuff up, and you're like, and their playing is so spot on and stuff. But then you forget that they're ripping because they do it like kind of seamlessly, effortlessly, where it doesn't seem like there's some prog rock band that's just trying to rip it up as hard as they can, and you're like, oh, like, dude, enough. Like, I don't know, when I listen to them, I don't ever sit there and go, okay, enough.
Yeah. You know? No, I'm just always like
tasteful.
just trying to. I love Tool because they're a band that challenge my thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that we are seeing less and less and less of that today.
Yeah, I agree.
And I love, because you as a musician, you can break down the whole time signatures and stuff like that. I don't know
you
all
just
that
know
stuff.
something weird's going on.
I just know that there's,
like,
and I do know that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just trying to grasp like what it is that they're doing, you know? And
they're a really interesting band for me personally, because it's like, I personally don't like, I have Tool on iTunes and stuff, but it's not one of my go-tos when I'm driving in my car, but when I listen to it, I love it. Like, my brother and I just went for my birthday a couple weeks ago to see them at San Diego State.
Oh, cool.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen them live, and I know Maynard pretty good through my brother because they played in Perfect Circle together.
Yep. I love A Perfect Circle so much.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it was so cool. Because I've known him for so long, but and I like Tool, but I've never seen them. And then seeing their stage show, which was just
unbelievable,
mind blowing.
Yeah.
I go, even if you don't like that band musically, you have. It's like the way I look at it. It's almost like listening to like an operatic singer or a classical violinist, where you go, I might not be a classical, freak wanting to listen to classical music every day, but I can appreciate what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Or I can listen to a classical singer and go, or opera singer. It's like, I'm not a big opera guy. I'm not going to listen to opera in my car. But when you listen to someone who can sing opera properly and has trained their entire lives practicing 6 hours a day to do that, you have to respect it. And you have to go, well, this is unbelievable. And I kind of feel like Tool is like that a little bit, where or like if you go to their shows, visually what's happening and musically what's happening, and the effort that has gone into marrying the two, the playing and the visuals and the videos and the lights and the lasers. Even if you don't like the band, you have to appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
1,000%.
You have to respect it, because it's like, wow, this
There's
is
just nothing else like it. There's nothing else like that band, And I feel you, like, where I have to kind of be in that mode of where I want to feel reflective and like deep, But what I do love about Tool is that I want to put on a whole album. Like, I'm like, okay, we're gonna put on Lateralis, and we're gonna listen to the whole thing now, and it just takes you on a journey.
Experience. Yeah, it does. It takes you on a journey.
But I saw them at Staples Center, and I was up in the nosebleeds, but it was the cool part about that was getting to watch Danny Carey, from above and actually.
And do you know him at all? Have you met him?
No.
Oh.
I would die. I would die.
Best.
Yeah.
He's like I know him a tad, just from my brother, and he is the nicest. He's like kind of goofy and unassuming and just like, hey, how's it going? And
to me, he just seems like he would be this like, just this ominous, like mysterious. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
Maynard.
Yeah.
But
I met Maynard before one time, and I was just like, oh my God, I was freaking out, dude.
Yeah.
Because like I was in the parking lot when he used to be over in the offices in Venice.
Right.
And so I get out of my car, and it's fucking Maynard right next to me, and he has a box of donuts. He's about to go on and do Kevin and Bean. And I was like, oh my God. Because I I love A Perfect Circle so much. And I just like in high school, it was like we just all like worship Maynard,
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, you're going to say something to him. He could not be nice to you. We all know this. So I just said, hey, I just wanted to say Perfect Circle was amazing at Coachella, and like, thank you. And he's like, oh yeah, for all 13 people who were watching, because he was playing at the same time. They were playing at the same time as Eminem. It was awful. It was rough. And it was like just not that many people watching A Perfect Circle. But I was just like, that was my interaction with Maynard. That just happened.
That's really funny.
But he was nice. He was nice. It was just like a funny thing for him to say. But.
Yeah. No, he's definitely nice. He actually gave me a shout out at the show on the microphone because he barely spoke the whole show.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't talk.
He was. Oh, I know. He was just like roaming around like at the Staples Center, like doing weird stuff, like carrying things around, and He was like riding the guitar player's Marshall cabinet across the stage. Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was rad. Like one of the few things that he said the entire night, he gave me a shout out, and it was awesome because it was my birthday. So it was like it was awesome. I was like I couldn't, and then we were driving home, and Josh goes, I knew he was going to do that. I go, what? He goes every time I go with someone, he goes, he'll give him a shout out on the microphone. He goes, he's done it like 3 or 4 times to my friends. So he goes, I knew I wasn't going to say that to you because who knows?
Because if he didn't do it, yeah.
But he goes, I knew he was going to do that. And I was like, oh, yeah. It was pretty rad though. I was like, he said like 10 words the whole night, and part of it was my name.
Oh my God, it's
it
so
rad.
wild. So I definitely do want to get into just like, so are you born and raised in Southern California? Are you from Fullerton?
I'm from Placentia.
Placentia, okay.
Yeah, so right next to Fullerton.
Okay.
And then my wife I went to junior high and high school with, and she's from Placentia. And then, but we didn't actually start dating till out of college. Mm-hmm. But yeah, still, I just, it's what we know, and it's like, I like Orange County, and I like being 45 minutes from LA, and being able, and I have 2 little boys, and it's like, it's rad to, kind of have my little Orange County life that it's kind of all I know, right? And then for music, I can be 45 minutes away from, it only takes me, with no traffic, I can get to Sunset in 45 minutes. Yeah. So I'm right off the 91, so it's easy. It's fast.
Seriously, yeah. And it's, you keep it simple. You have like your roots, you know, keep
and so my brother, like, I think couldn't wait to get out of Orange County. Like when he dropped out of high school when he was like 15, and he moved in with the singer of the Vandals in Long Beach and never left Long Beach. He's still in Long Beach today.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
But it was like, I knew I didn't want to do that. I was like, I want to stay here. And when I graduated from high school, a lot of like players that I knew that I was playing, I was really heavy into jazz growing up, and I studied it really heavy, and all of my buddies were like, we're out of high school now, so we're all going to move to LA and start playing up there. And I was like, why? They all went up there, and they all ended up coming back. Because it was just like, it was, for jazz, it was weird. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we weren't rock and roll. We were playing jazz, and it was,
And is that like because of your dad? Like your dad's
My dad.
influence?
So yeah. Okay. So my dad was the leader of the Disneyland band, the conductor, for like 25 years. Like before my brother and I were born. And actually, my brother was actually born in Orlando when my dad opened up Walt Disney World in '73, and then lasted there for 2 years, and then in '75 moved to Anaheim, and then that's when I was born. But yeah, we grew up with the Disneyland band, and it was like we grew up with instruments. It's like my mom was a professional classical piano player, and then ran through a sliding glass window and almost cut her hand off, and it like ended everything.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah, she was having a PTA meeting at our house in our porch,
and
my brother and I were downstairs watching TV, and my dad had it was just back before safety glass. It was plate glass. And my dad had cleaned Windexed the sliding glass door. And my mom told the PTA group, she's like, I'll be right back. I'm going to tell the boys to go to bed. And she turned around and went straight through the glass door. Yeah, it was gnarly.
That's insane.
Life-changing.
Yeah, oh yeah, something like that
they were going to have to
happens.
amputate her hand, and then she found a plastic surgeon. It was like, I think I can get you to keep your last 3 fingers, which were the most mangled on her left hand. And then they said that... he's like, but you're never going to feel them, so it's going to be very dangerous. Because if you can't feel pain, you're going to be screwing your hand up left and right. If you can't feel your fingers, they're going to be getting caught in car doors, and you're going to be slicing them with a knife when you're cutting a carrot. And then she finally kept on going to all these. She did everything, electroshock therapy. I mean, she did surgery. She did every plastic surgeon, every like nerve guy, hand guy. And then she finally found this guy that was like, I can help you. And she's able to move her hand, and she can feel a little bit, but she always says it feels like your hand's asleep, like that tingling.
Oh yeah.
But she's like I'm never aware of it unless I think of it. But she kind of had to retrain herself how to play without her last 3 fingers, so that changed everything.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, like when stuff like that happens, it's like
crazy,
that.
Right?
Yeah, that changes
one
you.
little thing.
That's like my little brother. Like he got freaking hit by a truck when he was 7, and he lost a leg, his left leg. But I mean, he's like a little badass today, and he like plays like ice hockey as a goaltender, and he actually just wrote this like amazing article about his whole experience, and I'm like so proud of him.
That's awesome.
But I mean, the people that go through stuff like that,
traumatic,
but then like keep forging on.
Yeah.
Like the fact that your
and then it
mom
makes you feel like a piece of shit that you haven't done anything.
1,000%. Like 1,000. I'm like, he's more active than I am. Like he like I feel like I can't complain. Like if I'm just like I'm tired, because he's like 20 million times more tired because he has to exert so much more energy just to kick his leg out every and all of that. So it's like, and your mom's like, I'm just gonna keep playing piano. Like I'm gonna relearn how to play. Like it's just like, wow, people like that are so inspiring.
Crazy.
Yeah. So were your parents the kind of parents that were they strict with you with
No.
they just but they just wanted you to learn?
Like this. It was like they weren't strict with us, but it was like they had gone through what it takes to become a real player, and we were surrounded by real players because in the Disneyland Band, when we were kids, like little kids, the Disneyland Band were really old. They were like in their 60s and 70s, and to a 5-year-old, that's like Weekend at Bernie's. It's like you're like almost dead, right? A 70-year-old when you're 5. Now I look at 5 and I go, 70 is the new 40.
Yeah, really.
But like when you're a little kid. But they were all guys that had toured with Count Basie and Duke Ellington and Glenn Miller in the 1940s and 50s, and now they're in their 70s working their twilight years at Disneyland because they had health benefits. They had a steady job Monday through Friday. They had retirement. Like for a musician.
And they still got to play.
And they got to play.
Yeah.
I was like, where's you going to find that?
I know.
And nowhere.
It's amazing.
Nowhere. I mean, it's not like that anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, but back in the day it was. So it was like we grew up with these monster players. Just like, and we just thought that's the way it was. It was like, we didn't think we were in a special situation over there. We thought, yeah, well, when you take an instrument up, you practice so you sound like that.
Yeah.
And then so we, of course, because both of our parents are musicians, both sets of my grandparents are musicians. My mom's parents both played piano, not professionally, but my dad's, both of his parents played professionally. My grandma was a piano teacher and a choir teacher, and then my grandpa was in the Army, the head of the Army band, and then played. Was a high school band director for like 30 years in Minnesota.
Wow.
But we grew up with it everywhere, so it was like. It wasn't like you were forced to play, but it was like, of course you're going to play. It's like, this is what your grandparents do. This is what your parents do. This is what everyone that you're around does. And there's literally instruments on the walls and in every room. And I mean, I think my brother and I probably went through 10 instruments each before we figured out what we wanted to play. You know what I mean? And it's so ironic that for the last 25 years I've been making my living on piano, because it's like I was a sax player. I studied, like when I was 12 I was like taking lessons from Chick Corea's sax player. For people who don't know who Chick Corea is, he's like world famous piano player. And it was like that's I want to be a sax player. And so when I was in high school, I noticed I made the All-State high school jazz band. So it was like all the best kids in California. Every year you would audition, and then it would be like it was a big band. So it was 5 saxes, 5 trumpets, 5 trombones, piano, bass, drums, and I realized right away that all these kids were no longer taking on their instruments. They were only taking piano, because when you're in high school and you're at that level of playing, you're already proficient on your instrument. Now it's about learning harmony and melody and music theory. And the best way to learn that is by playing piano. So I just kind of looked at all these other kids, and I was like, oh, none of these trumpet players take trumpet lessons. They all take piano lessons. That's all they take, because they know what fingerings are on the trumpet. So now it's like it's only about the music, and it's about the theory and how can I get better with theory. And so of course you have to go to piano, because that's where everything is set out right in front of your hands and everything makes sense. It's like you can see, oh, that's a whole step, that's a half step, that's a half step, that's a whole step, that's a minor third. You get to see it in front of your hands. There's no other instrument in the world like that.
Right.
A guitar's not out like that. A guitar, it's all different partials. It's like saxophone, you can't even see your fingers and you don't play chords. Trumpets, you don't play chords. It's 3 valves. It's like trombone, forget it. It's like that's literally the only instrument where you can, that and vibes and like marimba and vibes and glockenspiel, but that's set out like a piano. It's a piano is what it is. And so I started taking piano lessons when I was like 15. Again, my mom used to teach my brother and I when we were kids, and we hated it because our mom was teaching us, and who wants to take lessons from your mom? She would set the cooking timer on the piano and sit it there, and then she would leave the room and we'd like twist it back 10 minutes. You know what I mean? It would be like every day, and then we hate it, and then we both quit because we hated it.
Yep.
And then so I started retaking piano. So I already played a little. It wasn't like I was starting from ground zero with piano. And I also knew a lot of theory because I'd been taking sax at this point for a while, for 6 or 7 years. But I started taking from a piano teacher for jazz, for theory, and because now I'm practicing piano every day, I was just by default, I was getting good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to, and I was not trying to become a piano player.
Yeah.
It was just like, I'm practicing every day because this is going to make my sax playing better.
Yep.
And that was the goal. I was not trying to become a piano player. Then, so I fast forward to like my second year in college, and I was going for like music education, and which is something that in retrospect, I don't know what I was thinking. Like I would have been, I wouldn't have been a good teacher, and I would have probably been really miserable. I would have, like I said, if I would ever go back, I was going to Cal State Fullerton. I was like, if I ever go back, I definitely would have changed my major. But
there's a reason for everything.
There's a reason for everything,
so
right?
You learned something there that you needed.
But I was at this point, like I had already been gigging and making money and on sax, and ironically enough, I was playing guitar and singing in a punk band, and we hired this bass player, and he was a tech for the Eagles.
Oh my God.
And he came up to me and he goes, I know you play piano really well. And I was like, yeah. And I'm still not thinking of myself as a piano player. And I go, yeah, I can play. And he goes, Joe Walsh is firing his entire band, and he wants to hire 3 young guys, but it's all Hammond organ, Hammond B3. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I don't know how to play Hammond organ because that's like a different animal. That's like saying, well, you're Danny Carey, so that means that you know how to play steel drums.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You go, no.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different animal. Well, or playing Hammond B3 organ and playing piano is very different. It's how you play it, how you approach it, how you voice things. Completely different.
I love the organ, by the way. It's my second favorite instrument after
really?
Drums. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I like, and like the Tom Petty, like in Refugee.
Yeah.
I fucking love the organ in that.
It's the best.
Like
yeah.
I just love it. Yeah. So continue.
Yeah, it's well, the funny thing is, so I really liked it too, but I never had one, and they're expensive. An old Hammond B3 because you got to buy the Leslie speaker that spins. And
oh yeah.
By the time you get into it, you're $6 or $7 grand in. It's like, and I really didn't know that was going to pan out for me. So I wasn't about to spend at 21 years old $7 grand on a Hammond B3 and a Leslie speaker. So he goes, it's a Hammond gig, and I was like, ugh. He goes, excuse me. He goes, I have one at my studio. He goes, he's gonna audition 3 guys, and I think I can get you in if you want to audition. He goes, it's next Thursday, and he goes, he's gonna do it at my studio in Garden Grove.
Whoa.
Like I'm like, what? Joe Walsh from the Eagles is gonna be in Garden Grove? He's gonna be in Garden Grove holding auditions? I'm like, this is really weird, man. I'm like, is he holding it or someone else? He's like, no, he's doing it. I was like, if anything, I get to hang out with Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
Like he's a guitar god.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, done. So he gave me keys to his studio. And he said, go out, and then I'm going to date myself right now. He's like, go out to the record store and buy some records or some CDs of some old Jimmy Smith albums and figure out how to play this organ, and you got 5 days. And I was like, fuck. And I was like, okay. So I went out, I bought like 4 Jimmy Smith albums, and I just listened. I show up every day. He had to show me how to turn the organ on because it's the way that a Hammond organ works. It's off of a wheel spins inside of it. And it's all magnets.
Oh wow!
And it's all like harmonics. But it's called a tone generator, and the wheel spins really fast, and it creates the magnetic pull, and the harmonics start coming out, and that's how the sound works. So, anyways, he had to teach me how to start the engine on the organ, and then once you start it, then you got to flip the on button, but you're still holding the run motor, and then you got to let rid of the run motor, but still hold, like it was like a whole deal, right?
Yeah.
And you got to let it warm up because it's all tubes. You got to let it warm up for like 3 minutes, else it'll play out of tune or it won't make any sounds. And so like he gave me a whole lesson on it in like 20 minutes, and then he gave me keys to his studio, and I would sit there all day and just practice all these Jimmy Smith licks. Then I had my audition. And I was the first guy to audition out of the 3 that he was going to audition, and he gave me the gig right there. And then we went to sushi that night, and I sat next to him, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I'm sitting next to Joe Walsh. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, dude, this is the guy, he's in the Eagles, and he's like one of the James gang, and like one of the best guitar players ever. And I'm sitting there, and we have sushi, and he leans over to me, and he's like, man, he's like, I'm so impressed with your organ skills. And I was like, I still to this day, I'm still really good friends with him. And I still to this day have never told him that I had never played it before.
In like a week and 5
by the
days.
week. I was just cheating my way through that whole audition. I was just hanging on by every last thread. But I never told him.
But that's everything in life, though. That's
right?
just like seizing the opportunity instead of just going into fear and just being like, no, like I can't do this. Da, da, da. You were like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know,
fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. Worst case scenario, you get to meet him, try out, and even if you didn't get the gig, okay. But you'll never know unless you try.
Yeah, and I always remember my dad saying like, take every audition you can take, because even if I went on a billion auditions that I didn't get, and it was like, doesn't matter. Show up to them, because guess what? You'll get over the nerves of an audition. You'll learn how to audition. It's not even so much as if you're going to get the gig or not. It's learning how to audition, so when the right audition comes that you're dying for, you're going to nail it, and you're not going to be nervous, and you're going to know how to do an audition. So my dad used to always stress, like, take every audition you can. Take it, because you'll learn. Auditioning is an art. Mm-hmm. You have to learn how to not get mental, because the second you start freaking yourself out with head games, your audition's done.
Yeah.
And you can be better than 90% of the people that showed up, but if you don't, certain people don't audition well.
Yeah.
And they're monster players. And you have to learn how to audition. It's a skill.
Right.
So thank God, I had been on a lot of auditions, and I faked it and I made it, and I played with them for like 3 years, and it was amazing. Like I remember, because I played jazz, the way you play jazz piano is so different than playing organ. And like organ, there's no sustain pedal, so you can't hold a chord and it's gonna ring out because you're hitting the pedal. The second you let off on the organ, it's done.
Oh wow!
Right?
So you're like holding.
You have to hold everything.
Yeah.
And I would be comping, they call it comping. I'd be playing like jazz comping, and Joe Walsh would get behind me, and like I was like 21, I was a kid, and he would get behind me and he would start yelling at me. He would say, "Don't let go of it! Don't let go of it!" and he'd be like, he would go, "Drive that thing, drive it!" He goes, "Don't let go of it!" I'd be like, I was like holding on to every chord, but Joe Walsh taught me how to play organ. I mean, it was like, and I learned from one of the best. You know what I mean? And then here I am still today. That's what I played 90% of the night with every band that I've ever played with. I still have my old Hammond organ. I still play it every night.
Oh my God, that's such a trip.
It's a trip. It just happened.
It
just happened by default. And I still play sax a lot, but not nearly as much as organ or piano.
Yeah.
Which is just so weird.
Well, it's like I always say in life, like you might have this idea of where you think you're gonna go.
Yeah.
It was like for me, like I thought that I was gonna be a marriage and family therapist.
Right.
And this was when I was like really fucked up and in my disease.
Yeah.
But I was like, I have all the answers. I'm gonna help everybody else out.
Yeah.
But I was on the path to do that when like radio came in out of like left field.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, I'm good.
This is fun.
I'm good at this thing.
Yeah.
And I fucking love music.
You see?
So let's,
and everything
let's
falls
try
in
this
place.
out for a while. Yeah, for now,
Isn't that crazy how
ride
that
the wave
happens?
till it crashes,
Yeah.
But it's just weird.
It's crazy
how just like things. So I always tell people, I'm like, you might have an idea of where you think you're supposed to go, and like, yes, like go down that path, but like don't ignore the times when the universe is like, yeah, but go this way,
Right.
like, yeah.
Right? It's like they say, what's for you won't go by you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if something's meant for you, it's going to hit you and you don't know what it is. And you don't know when it's going to hit you. It's like, when you wake up in the morning, you have no idea how your life might change in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Ever. You know what I mean? Whether it's a car wreck or you win the lottery.
Yeah.
It's like life can change in a moment. And it's a cliche, but it's just true.
Yeah, seriously.
You know what I mean?
It's like but you'll never know unless you're out there in the world, like living life,
Yeah, and taking opportunities and not being scared. I think, one of the biggest things that holds people back, and myself, is fear.
Yep.
Fear of what if or what are they going to say or what are they going to do or whatever. And it's like that really holds back people.
Yeah.
And on all levels.
Oh, for sure.
And
I'm guilty of it for sure.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I have to push myself to be like, fuck it, dude. Just do it anyways.
Yeah.
Do the right thing, or like sit down and take 20 minutes to put this email together and reach out to this person. It's like, because you never know what can happen.
You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that, and it's funny because I ended up years later playing in the Goo Goo Dolls for like 3 years, and the way that I got that gig was a friend of mine called me and it was like, hey, do you want to take this session on sax? it's at my buddy's house in Anaheim, and it pays $100. And I was like, ugh. I'm like, I don't need some stranger's house in Anaheim for $100. I was like, no. And then I just always remember my dad going, just take everything. You never know. So I go, okay, I'll do it. And I was kind of like doing my buddy a favor, and I really didn't want to do it at all. But I did it, and I was like, it was like in some bedroom in some dude's 3-bedroom house in Anaheim, and someone that was there, the guitar player on the session, was friends with this guy who's really famous in LA, this guy named Barry Squire, Barry Squire is like the guy in LA. If you're like a younger cat and you're trying to make it as a touring guy, playing as a touring musician with bands, he's the one that holds the auditions. So it's like any band, hey, we need a new young guitar player, we need a new blah, blah, blah. Barry Squire has the magic list.
Wow.
And he's got all the people's names. And he goes, call this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And you hire Barry Squire, and Barry Squire will hold the audition, and he'll call all the people, and then the band will be in on the audition. So anyways, he knew Barry Squire, this guy at this shitty session that I was taking in Anaheim. And he gave Barry Squire my number and said, you should throw this kid on your list. And he also plays piano. And so all of a sudden, I get a call to do audition for the Goo Goo Dolls, and it was a closed audition. It was like me and the keyboard player from that band, the New Radicals, and I think like the keyboard player from the Wallflowers. I think I can't remember. It was a while ago, but I auditioned, and then I got it, and then that parlayed in a billion other things, and it was just kind of like. But that was from I took that shitty $100 gig in some dude's house in Anaheim.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it was like I could have very easily have said, dude, give me a break. I'm
just gonna chill. It's $100. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some stranger's living room in Anaheim. I'm like, nah.
And to be connected to the guy that can get you linked up on any tour. So have you, since then, did he hook you up with a lot of this other stuff? Or?
No, but I mean, I still know him. But through the Goo Goo Dolls, they had the same management as Green Day.
Okay.
And then another friend that we had in common, and that's how I ended up doing Green Day. But it was like it all kind of well, not at all, but a lot of it started with that connection, and that, it kind of parlayed into a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And it was like, but it literally started in that dude's $100 gig in his living room.
Yep.
Yeah,
just because
that
you
could have said
listen to
no
that,
to.
Yeah, you listen to that little voice in your head, or your dad's little voice, like, let's just go.
I was actually at breakfast about 3 months ago with one of my brother's friends, this guy Martin Kurzenbaum. He's Sting's manager, and he's co-written songs with Lady Gaga and stuff. I became buddies with him. And he's super into keyboards, and I have like a really cool old keyboard collection. So like we were always talking old analog keyboards. And I sold him this old Fender Rhodes, and he's like, I go, I'll bring it up to your house. And he was like, oh, come on. So we went to breakfast, and he was talking about he was writing songs and managing. Do you remember that band, that female duo called Tattoo?
Oh, it was like TATU?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? I think they were Russian, I think.
Running through my head.
So,
I think it was that song.
So, yeah, I don't really know any of the songs, but so he was like managing them and like co-writing, and he was doing all the stuff. And he had hooked him up with some producer, and they called him and woke him up at 3 a.m. And they're like, we're writing right now. You should come write with us. And he was like, ugh. He's like, no. And he's like, I'm not going to do it, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, he hangs up, he tells him no, and his wife was like, who's that? And he goes, oh, that was the girls, and they want me to come down to the studio and write right now. And it's like 3 a.m. He's like, dude, I'm in bed. Like, no way. And he goes, my wife literally said, get out of bed and go right now. He was like, she kicked me out of bed. He goes, I got up, I drove to the session, and that song made me millions.
Oh, yeah.
Millions of dollars. Millions.
Yeah.
And he goes, and I almost just slept and would have woke up the next day and had no idea what I missed. But he goes, my wife literally said, go do it right now. And she made me get out of bed. And he goes, I got out of bed, I put my clothes on, I drove, I was zombied on autopilot. And he goes, and that song made me millions.
Yeah, that song was everywhere. Wow.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know. It's like you gotta like take those opportunities.
Yeah.
Even if you think they're lame,
You just don't know. You don't know what something is gonna be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like you just
crazy,
do it anyways.
right?
You know.
I know.
So how did you get linked up with with Dr. Dre, and how did and just tell me about the epicness of that man.
Yeah. So I haven't seen or worked with him in a long time, but I was doing these sessions with a friend of mine who a trumpet player named Ron Blake, and he was kind of hooked up with Ice Cube and Eazy-E, and he used to do sessions whenever those guys needed horn section stuff. They would call Ron. And I knew Ron through a buddy of mine that they were going to Cal State Northridge together, and he was calling me. Oh, and then Ron and I played in this band that was really big, like in the '90s, called Boogie Nights, and they were like this disco band. They kind of started that whole resurgence of the wearing the afros and jumping around on stage playing disco music and bell bottoms, and these dudes were like making $500,000 a year playing covers.
Wow!
And like we played like Janet Jackson's birthday parties, and it was like we would play Friday nights on the Sunset Strip at House of Blues, sold out. It was just like this band. These dudes were the biggest rock stars ever. Like you would show up and they would be pulling up in their 62. They had like 62 Chevelle or not Chevelles, but what's the? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm not gonna remember this.
Challenger.
No, I have one.
You do not.
I got a Hellcat.
You do not.
Yeah, I got a Hellcat.
I want a Challenger so bad.
Dude, Christine's got one.
Oh my God. I know she does. I know.
Yeah, I got a purple Hellcat.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's rad.
Dude, did you bring it with you?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Oh yeah.
I want to go look at
It's so rad.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like having 700 horsepower under your foot is just like it's rad. You can come to a light and like some rad Porsche will be right next to me. I go, I'll drag you down the street.
Yeah.
Like, don't look at my car like it's a Dodge. I will drag you by your hair all the way down the street. It's pretty amazing.
Oh God, I love it.
But an Impala. Yeah. So they had like 62
Impala,
Impalas and stuff like on hydraulics, and they were dating supermodels and doing blow. And I was like, dude, these guys are the biggest rock stars I've ever met in my life. And so I was playing in their horn section with this guy Ron, and Ron was in with all those dudes, like NWA, and then so he called me for a Dre session one time, and it was at Skip Saylor Studios off of like Larchmont, and I remember showing up like being really nervous, right?
Well,
like dudes like had guns, like these weren't cops or security guards, like, and you know what I mean? And then like I remember walking up and the guys would have clipboards and they would ask like, "What's your name?" And I'd say my name and they're like, "All right, follow me." And like they would have like this ring of all like 100 keys, and it was like everything was a double door with double locks, and you would unlock one door and let you in, and then lock it, and then unlock the other door, and then lock it, and then it was like lockdown.
Yeah.
Like they weren't letting anyone near Dre. And so I did a couple sessions for him, and it was a blast, and he was so cool, he was so rad. And you walk in and he'd be like, "Yo," he's like, what do you want to drink?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, just give me Bud Light," I mean, like whatever, some shitty light beer or something. And he would go get you beer, and he'd be like, "What do you want to eat?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." And he's like, "You tell me," and then he would send people out to get you food, and he was just so rad. He was so cool. He was rad. And then. But the thing that I didn't know about these rappers and these hip-hop guys, because I didn't travel in that circle at all, is that unlike rock bands who craft songs where there's an intro, then there's a verse, then there's a chorus, then there's a second verse, then there's a bridge, and then there's a chorus, and then there's an outro, right? If you're going to set up your normal song or whatever, right? Well, these hip-hop dudes and these rap dudes, they lay down a beat and like a 4 to 8 bar bass line, and then they just start rapping, and that's it. That's the song. So because that's all they really do, they can knock out 100 songs in a month. Where a rock band, you're lucky to get 15 songs in 6 months. You know what I mean? Or whatever. I mean, it's like certain bands are way more prolific than others.
Right,
But you know what I'm saying? Like you're not having to craft these, these syllables and consonants and vowels to make the melody work. These guys they're rapping about life and street life and whatever, and they're throwing down a vibe, and they got their drum loop and they got their bass line, and that's about it. So they're able to crank out. So I remember one time I was recording for the Chronic 2001.
Oh
right?
my God, that's like I love that.
And I remember recording. I did like 4 or 5 songs for him, and then it comes out, and it's still Record Store, right? So I run out to Tower Records, I buy it, and I undo it, and of course I'm not on it. And I was just like, fuck. And it's like, because he would record 130 songs.
Yeah.
And only 12 make it on the album, right? So I did a whole bunch of sessions for him, and he was always just so cool and stuff. And like he would talk about like after we would record, like we would hang out and drink beer, and then he would like tell stories about like going to jail and getting chased by the police in his Ferrari, and just like all these awesome stories where you're just like, yeah, this is awesome, and then I didn't see him for years and years and years and years. He just, I think, technology took over where you can use samples now instead of horn sections.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So it's like, well, I don't need the horn players anymore. I can just do it right here on my keyboard. But all of a sudden I started getting these checks in the mail, and like from Dr. Dre, and this is like, I don't know, 3 years ago, and I was like, what's this? And then my buddy Ron calls me, and he's like, dude, he goes, guess what? He goes, remember that session we did for the Chronic 2001? I go, yeah. And he goes, well, one of those songs is the title track to Straight Outta Compton, the new movie.
Oh.
And it's also on Dre's new album called Compton.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, you're kidding me. So I got to play on the title track of the movie and on a song on his new album. And I was like, for a session that I did in 2000, because it was for the 2001, so we did it the year before. So you're talking 17 years ago.
God.
It's like,
and he still had that shit.
He still had it.
He was like, let me go through all this stuff from back then.
And I don't even know how you would file all those songs. I mean, imagine if you're recording 100 songs for an album. Imagine how many albums he has out. He's got to have thousands of songs.
Oh my gosh,
like
yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he remembered that one song, and he pulled it out. And it was like when the movie starts, the song going on, I'm on that song, and then he used that song for his album. And I was like, oh my God, this is just the best.
That's so fucking cool.
Mailbox money.
Yeah, really. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So, I do want to kind of ask you, because, we're both sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's like just,
I don't call it sober. I just call it I don't party anymore.
You don't party, but I feel like I do party.
I do too. It's not like it used to be though.
I party like.
I try to.
I party more now but when I used to like be all fucked up, I didn't want to be around anybody.
Yeah.
I just want to be in a room with
I was the opposite.
Tinfoil and my fucking pen, and that's it.
No, I definitely, drank alone because like I had to drink every day. And I didn't really get too heavy into any drugs ever, but I really did. I drank like crazy. And I grew up with it. My dad was, an alcoholic. So I had that to look at, and I had 2 kids. I had a baby when I quit drinking. Mm-hmm. And then I had a 3.5-year-old and my wife. And I was like, I knew that, it's like we're in this industry. This is a weird industry.
Yeah.
Where it's like if you don't drink, it's a problem. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say that. It's not a problem, but it's not the norm if you're not drinking. Right. It's not a problem.
Right.
But and you go on tour, and it was never a problem on tour. I was just like everyone else. It wasn't like I wouldn't crash and burn and do bad shit and not show up and be thrown up on stage. It was like I was fine. I was very what do they call it?
Functioning.
Very functional.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Incredibly functional. But then I come home, and I couldn't turn the switch off.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I had a couple turning points, but one of them was I was putting my 3.5-year-old Tennessee. I was putting him to bed, and and then I had an infant at the time, Colt, and I was very aware that I had a drinking problem, but it was so functional that I was like, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like when I told my wife I was quitting, when I told my wife I was quitting, she was like, oh, you are? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, okay. Like it wasn't like, oh, thank God you quit drinking. It was like, you're like, oh, okay. But it's like, it's around us so much, and she doesn't drink. My wife doesn't drink. I mean, she does, but it's like a glass of red wine once a week, maybe, or once every 2 weeks at dinner, and it's one glass. So they call them those normies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
yeah, normies. Yeah.
And so,
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. What is that?
Yeah. And so, but it was just so. It's just so around us, and it wasn't like out of control, but a couple bad things happened, but it still wasn't catastrophic. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I'm losing my house and my family, and my job and my friends, and but I was very aware of it. And then I just had a series of things happen in about a month. It was in Valentine's Day. Ooh. Mm-hmm. 6 years ago. So what day is it today? The 13th.
Yeah, 12th.
So the 12th. So yeah, on the 22nd. So in 9 days, I'll have 6 years.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
But it was a slew of things. But the one thing that the straw that broke the camel's back is I was going to bed. I was putting my son to bed, and he's like, Dad, he's like, stay here. And I was like, the lights were out. I thought I was getting him down, and it's like, I'm like, oh great, now he's gonna go run around. He's gonna his heart going now. It's gonna be another hour till I get him to sleep. But I go, okay, and I thought he was gonna go get a glass of water or something, and he had left the house in the back to our 2-car garage that was separated, and he went in and got me a cold beer, and he came back in his like diapers, and he hands it to me with the biggest smile on his face, and he's like, look what I got you.
Oh my God.
And it was like he knew that was the most important thing to me in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, fuck. I was just like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, because I grew up with it, with my dad was an alcoholic, and I grew up and my parents getting divorced and watched my dad literally lose everything. You know, went from having a 3-story house and this great family to having a sleeping bag at our friend's house on their couch and a beat up Volkswagen bus. You know, like I watched that, and that was so fucked up to watch when you're a little kid. But then I look at it now and I go, oh, thank God I had that, because my dad got his shit together, and I was able to see that you can do it. Like you can pull your shit together, because I was convinced I couldn't go a day without drinking. And it wasn't like I didn't start drinking tequila in the morning. It's like, that was the other thing about getting sober and not drinking anymore, was I realized that there's like thousands of types of alcoholics and addicts.
Yep.
And I thought that an addict or an alcoholic was someone that was strung out with
like
a needle in their arm. Yeah, Skid Row, that was all fucked up. And it's like, that was I remember saying to my dad when I was drinking, I'll never forget this, because I remember when he said this, I was like, oh, fuck. I said to my dad, it was when I was still drinking, I go, I know I'm not an alcoholic. And my dad kind of laughs, and he's like, how? And at this point, my dad's been sober 25 years, right? And he's like, oh, how? And I go, well, because I look at him, one of my buddies, who would like wake up and then start drinking Jack Daniels. And I go, I look at him, and that's how I know I'm not alcoholic, because fuck, I'm not like that. It's like, I'll have some Bud Lights starting at about 6:37, and that's when I would start my drinking, But they're Bud Lights. This is light beer. It's shitty light beer. This isn't a big deal. I ain't pounding tequila at 3 a.m, You're
like, the sun's going down. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm like, the work day's over. I'm like, this is all good. It's all good, And but I couldn't take a day off ever. If I took a day off, it was like few and far between, and I was such an asshole the whole day. I was so bitter that I wasn't going to drink, because I decided I'm not going to drink today. And most of the times I couldn't even pull it off, and I would still drink anyways. But like watching, so my dad, so I go, I know I'm not an alcoholic. I go, because I look at him, and my dad laughed, and he's like, Jason, he's like, there's lots of different types of alcoholics. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, do you know what an alcoholic is? I go, no, what? He goes, it's someone who drinks, and it doesn't matter how often you drink or what you drink, but if it negatively impacts your life on any level and you're unable to break that pattern. So if your pattern is that, like I knew a guy really well that would drink wine like once every 3 years. Literally, the guy wouldn't drink for 3 years, but when he drank, he would black out, and you couldn't get him out of bed for 3 days. Now that's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Even though he only drank once every 3 years, that's a massive drinking problem. You know what I mean? And it was like, and I kind of did the math when he said that, and I was like, okay, it's like a pattern, and you can't break it. No, not saying the pattern of every day or once a week or twice a week. It's whatever your pattern is. If it's affecting your life negatively on any way, your family, your job, whatever, he goes, you got a drinking problem. And I'll never forget that. I was like, fuck. Oh, yeah. And then I knew. I was like, oh, I'm fucked.
Yeah. No, totally.
I always knew. I used to joke around with my friends going, I know I'll be in AA someday. I was like, I used to say that to my friends. I go, I know. But I go, it's not now. Yeah. Because another thing that I also knew, which is totally true, which is why I never get ever involved in other people's programs, is because until you're ready for it, it's never going to fucking happen.
Nope.
You have to be ready for it. You can't have your wife or your girlfriend or your parents or your guy in your band or someone telling you, you should quit drinking. It's like, that ain't gonna do shit.
Nope.
It's like, you have to want it. And if you want it, then it is. And it's fucking hard. I still battle with it all the fucking time. And I should start going to meetings more, because it's like, I don't go to a lot of meetings. I used to. I went to a lot at the beginning, and they really help a lot.
Oh yeah.
But
I do like 3 a week.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. How long do you have?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so busy with my kids, and I don't often feel like I am gonna go drink right now, or holy shit, I think I'm gonna drink. Like I don't. So because of that, I kind of like convince myself I don't need to go to AA. But I remember, like, I think one of the positive things with watching my dad was I would go support him and go to AA meetings, not Al-Anon, but AA with him, and he would bring me to meetings. And I remember being a kid going, I would leave and go, that was fucking cool. Like, what they just taught right there, that's neat. You know what I mean? Like, it had really nothing to do with, I remember I had a sponsor one time, and he took a piece of paper. He had like a big, huge, whatever, 8x10, whatever fits in that, one of those printer papers, right? And he peeled off this tiny corner of the paper, and he goes, and he puts it right in the middle of the table, and he goes, see that? He goes, that's your drinking. And he pulls out the rest of the paper, and he goes, see this? He goes, this is what we have to fix. Yeah. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah. I know.
I was like,
and it never ends.
And it never fucking ends. I remember one of the first meetings I ever went to, I went to that crazy, have you ever heard about that crazy meeting in Beverly Hills where it's everyone who's someone? It's been going on for like 30 years. I won't say who it is because the AA thing.
The men's stag? Yeah, I know it is,
And so it's literally anyone who's anyone with the most influential musicians and actors that have changed the game.
Right.
Is at this meeting, and I got into it because I was lucky enough. Joe Walsh was my sponsor. Right? And he goes and he's very out with his sobriety. I'm not ousting him. Anyways, I remember there was a producer that was there that I kind of knew a little bit, and I just had answers. I needed answers. I had questions. And I remember grabbing him after a meeting and just like I was like, "Can I just talk to you for like 20 minutes?" Like there were certain questions that I didn't want to ask Joe for some reason, and I don't know why. It was so early. I just quit drinking, and I didn't really know how to deal with it on any level, and it really scared me. Everything scared me because I was like, "How am I going to do this? Can I do this? I don't even know if I can do this."
Yeah, like how do I live life without this? Yeah.
And then I remember grabbing him, and my big question was this. I was like, "How long have you been sober?" And he goes, 22 years. I go, "Okay." So I go, you're gonna produce this new band, right? And they're playing at the Roxy tomorrow night. And you're gonna go to the Roxy and you're gonna go watch them play. And I go, what was your favorite drink? And he goes, rum and Coke. I go, okay. So you're at the Roxy, this band that you're about to sign and you're gonna produce them, they're playing, and a guy walks up to you, I'm talking tomorrow. I'm not talking back in the day, I'm talking today. And you walk up to him and he's got a rum and Coke in his hand and you smell it. Do you still want it? And he's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember I was crushed.
Yeah. Oh,
I was
really?
crushed.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was going to go away. I thought like, oh, you get sober
and
then you don't want to drink anymore because you figure out how to not drink, and then you're like, yeah. And I'm like, I was so bummed. I was crushed. I was like, I go 22 years later, you still want that drink 22 years later?
But it's like but it's a different feeling because even, dude, I was driving here today and I looked to my right and there was some dude passed out in the grass with a tall can next to him. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That looks so nice.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not the truth. You know, I know that's not the truth. It's just,
it's fun for an hour.
It's just, but there's still that part of my brain that's like, oh yeah, you know, but like.
And I do too, because like my whole thing is it's like, I don't want to be the stick in the mud. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people that have gotten sober who became stick in the muds.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people. And I try so hard to not be a stick in the mud. And I don't judge other people. I don't sit there and go, you drunk asshole, you're a mess. Like, that's not me. But I don't want them to be like, Freese used to be so much fun.
Yeah.
And now he's just like.
But see, for my experience has been that I was not fun any longer. I was like to such a point that like I wasn't fun anymore, and now I'm fun again. And I go out to shows and I go to concerts and and I'm having a fucking blast today.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm getting there. I think the more that I'm out and doing stuff, I think it gets harder when I'm home because I'm not in those situations.
Yeah.
Because I'm with my wife and kids at home. I'm a total homebody.
Yeah.
And I have like a group of buddies that I hang out with at home, and I'm really good friends with a lot of Mormon people, and they don't party.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it's funny. I have this family, the Coopers, they're like the best family in the world, and they're Mormon, and they have this rad river house, and they used to always invite us, and I used to always go, oh, I can't go out there because like I'll have to drink every day, and they don't drink.
Yeah.
They're Mormon, And I was like, but I love, they're like, this family's like part of my family.
Yeah.
And but I used to always be like, I can't go to their river house because I would go crazy if I couldn't drink. And then when I quit drinking, we got so much tighter, and now we go to the river house and we have such a blast, and it's so much fun, and they're just such awesome people, and it's so rad. And I go, I feel like I'm an honorary Mormon.
Yeah. You made it.
Yeah.
You made it in.
Yeah. I'm like, they're like the best people ever, and I'm like, I love them.
Oh my God.
But it's like, yeah, it's really interesting though how I go with like bouts of sometimes I won't think about drinking at all, and then sometimes it gets hard.
Yeah.
And I feel
would just say, just like go to meetings. Just throw.
Yeah,
like,
I gotta find good
doesn't
meetings.
hurt you.
I haven't been proactive with finding good meetings.
And just knock them
There's
out
a couple
in the morning,
meetings by my
know?
house.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar at all with downtown Fullerton.
I've gone to some meetings in Fullerton before.
But there's a ton of bars by the slide bar,
Yeah.
right? There's like 30 bars within walking distance of the slide bar.
Yeah.
And so because of that, there's a billion young, and we're also right next to Fullerton College and Cal State Fullerton, right? So there's a ton of college kids, and they all get DUIs, and they have to go to these meetings to get their cards signed off, and none of the kids are there for a meeting. They're there to get their card signed.
Yeah.
And that's where I start having a problem with it, and because I'm like, I can't connect with a soul here, because it's like these kids with their necks tattooed, and
yeah, but
I'm
then
like,
you just go, well, what can I contribute? What can I
You're
say?
right. And I remember one time
know?
I was having a hard time. I was hitting a slew of really bad meetings, and I was like, I can't find a good meeting. Like, this sucks.
But I get what you're saying.
I remember I told Joe Walsh about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm having a really hard time. Like, the only good meetings I've found are up in L.A., and it's with 2 kids and a wife. It's hard to get to L.A. a lot to go to meetings, living in Orange County. And I go, I feel like sometimes I'll listen to the guys talk at speaker meetings, and I'm like, I have nothing in common with this dude or this chick, like, at all. And I remember he said something that completely changed me. And any of my friends who have quit drinking, I've said it to them too, and they were like, that has helped me. So, like, my brother doesn't drink anymore. My brother got sober like a year after I did.
Oh, wow.
And it was like the same thing. He was really high functioning. He would just drink at night before he put his 4 kids to bed, and it was just like, his 4 kids are asleep. I can finally have a glass of Chardonnay and relax, and then 1 glass turns into 5 glasses, and it was every day. And so after I quit, he wanted to go to breakfast one day, and he was like, he's like, what, how is it not drinking? And I was like, like, here we go.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And I was like, dude, I go, it's fucking hard, man, but it's, but it's good, life's good. I feel healthy. I wake up in the morning, feel good. And I'm just like, but it's one of these things where what Joe said to me when I told my brother, he said 2 things. He goes, when you're at a bad meeting and people are talking and you're like, dude, this guy is fucking killing me. Like, this guy's a loser. This guy's been in jail 5 times, and he's complaining because his roommate stole his fucking headphones. And I'm like, dude, I got other things to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he goes, if you concentrate on your similarities and not your differences, you'll get something out of him. He goes, I don't care how big of a moron this dude is. He goes, you will find something that you can get from him. And I went, I was like, okay. And then I remember going to a meeting, and this guy sucked, and he was killing me. And he started accusing this chick that she was going through his backpack, and she wasn't even. It was just like, it was a mess.
Yeah.
And I was hating on this dude. And then all of a sudden, I just thought of what Joe said, and I was like, And all of a sudden, halfway through, this guy started saying some shit that I started connecting to, and I was like, he was right.
Yeah.
I go, and that changed everything for me. You know what I mean? And then the other thing was that I can't even remember. Someone told me, they're like, when you watch people partying, and you get jealous and shitty that they're all having a blast and you're not, you can never get bitter because you did it. You got to do it as hard as anyone got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fly in private jets and drink Cristal. You got to do. Don't ever be bummed that you didn't get to party. You got to party. You did it. So, time to move on.
Yeah, you
know what I
graduated.
mean? And I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's still fucking hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Especially, I would imagine just being on the road and just just having that.
And it's important to me to still be friends and hang out with everyone off of stage.
Yeah.
And so I do my best to not try and be a stick in the mud because I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, totally.
And that's a personal thing. Whatever. I just got to work on it. But
Yeah.
But everything's good, and it's like, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Congratulations on that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
What advice would you have to like somebody who's out there who wants to be a touring musician or a studio musician or something? Apparently, they got to get a hold of that guy that you're.
Yeah. Barry Squire. Get a hold of Barry Squire. No, honestly, I think it all comes down to literally. I don't want to say whoring yourself out because that's not a great term, but not passing up opportunities. That $100 gig kind of set the rest of my life up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's not pass the fact that I used to practice 5 hours a day and would drive to LA and spend $150 an hour on lessons and practice while all of my other buddies were playing football and dating cheerleaders in high school. I was in my bedroom practicing my ass off and playing in marching band. Like, that sucked, and I knew it sucked, and I didn't want to do it, but I knew that it would pay off. Or I had faith.
Mm-hmm.
I had faith that it would pay off, and it did. And I practiced. I would practice sax to my mouth bled. Blood would be coming out, and I'd be like, okay, I got to stop. I'll start again tomorrow. And it was like, you have to consume yourself in it. I remember hearing a Dave Grohl interview, and he said, some kid said, what's your, how can, I have a rock band, how can I make it? What's your advice for my band so we can make it? And he goes, write awesome songs. He goes, if you write awesome songs, it doesn't matter what you look like or anything. He goes, you'll get famous.
Mm-hmm.
If you write great songs, you'll get famous. And it's kind of like, for me, it was like, learn how to play your ass off, and it'll, at some point, on some level, whatever the level is, it'll work. But you have to be hungry for it. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember watching I was on a plane, and they had something on Taylor Swift, right? It's like, I'm not some huge Taylor Swift fan. It's like, she's fine.
Yeah.
I don't listen to her in my car.
Totally.
But and it was showing footage of her at like 7 or 8 years old, and her mom at Capitol Records in front of the receptionist. She's sitting there playing a guitar and singing. I was like, that chick was going to make it no matter what.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That girl was not going to give up. And it really didn't have to do with that she was 10 times more talented than anyone else. She had the drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you have the drive and you put in the time, they say luck is hard work and opportunity when they finally meet, when they collide. It's like, yeah, you have to have the opportunity, but you also have to work hard. So when you have that opportunity,
you're ready.
You're ready.
Yeah. Ready to
Else
seize
you'll
it.
just work with one band if you get lucky enough, and then that'll be the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yeah, but like
if you're able to
want
parlay
longevity,
and being cool, it's like I
building relationships,
and friendships. That's very, very important. And I think I sit there and go, I hate calling it playing the game because I don't see it as playing the game. I think that it's the whole world. It's like if you work at Microsoft, the CEO of Microsoft isn't necessarily the guy with the highest IQ.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what to do, when, where, and why, and what to say at what meeting, and he knew how to be cool and have people like him, and he knew how to make good decisions. It doesn't mean he's the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like you have to know how to dress, how to act, and it's not. And I feel like I'm saying you got to be fake. You don't have to be fake, but if you want a certain outcome, you need to figure out what the recipe is for that outcome, and if you like that and you want to do that, then you just have to go after it.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, it boils down to like even just when you get up and you get dressed for the day and how you want to present yourself to the world that day. And I know depending on what I'm going to wear, I'm going to get treated differently because of that, because that's just the way that it is. We can't change that. So it's like everything else in the world is that way as well.
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that also you know, I think that working as a freelance musician is so, I think that it's like 50-50 your like who you are and then how you play. Because I know a lot of guys that are monster players and they don't work.
Yeah.
Because of who they are. It's like, for whatever reasons,
yeah,
they're rough to get along with.
If I was
they don't
in a
show
band,
up.
I'd be like, I want someone that's cool to hang out with.
Of course.
That you know that looks good with our band. That doesn't stick out. You know, that kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you know, I always said like, you know, like Kool and the Gang would never hire Michael Jackson to sing backup because Michael Jackson's a star and he's going to take over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you got to know your place and know your place. I mean, you got to know what this position is, and you play that position. It's like you're in a baseball team, and you go, you're shortstop. That you can't run over to first base and start playing first base because you want to, and you think you're good at it. They hired you to play shortstop, so you go play shortstop. You know what I mean? That's like don't say, oh well, I'm a better third baseman than this third baseman, so hey, I want to play third base. Like no. You're hired to play shortstop, so that's what you do.
Yeah, know your role.
You know, I remember talking to a producer years ago, and he was talking about this drummer who had worked with everyone, and he said that he goes, you know why that guy works so much? He said because when he gets hired for a session, if I tell him on this song we're gonna play pots and pans with wooden spoons, he'll do it, and he won't say that's gonna sound stupid.
Yeah.
And he goes, and that's why he works, because he'll grab the wooden spoons and he'll play the shit out of those pots and pans.
Yeah.
He goes, that's why he works. He goes, and there are those drummers that will sit there and go, that's fucking, I'm not doing that shit. That's stupid. Why am I going to play pots and pans? I don't play pots and pans. You know what I mean? You go, okay, great. See you later.
We'll find someone who does.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is our vision. This
right.
is not your record.
This is not your record.
Yeah.
You know, or this is not your band. You got to know, your role and do the position and you know, hopefully you like. I've been fortunate enough to love the positions that I've been thrown in, so I feel like I can kind of thrive in it because I feel like it is kind of my personality to do what I do, and I don't want to become the lead singer or the lead guitar player running out on the catwalk. You know what I mean? It's like that's kind of not my personality. So I do well with playing keyboards or playing sax because that's all I know. So it's it works out. I guess.
It's what you love. It's what suits you. Yeah.
And showing, the other thing is being punctual. You know what I mean? Like I heard when I've told this story 1,000 times to all my friends because I'll never forget it. I was in high school and I was playing in the all-state band and a sax. So this band was comprised of all these kids. So no one knew each other because everyone's from a different high school, right? So and every year it would be different kids. There would be the same few kids that were just above and beyond everyone else, and then there would be about half the band would be the same and half the band would be different every year. And I played in it for my sophomore, junior, and senior year. And I think my junior year, there was a sax player kid that showed up 5 minutes late to a rehearsal. And every year the director would be a different director, so you didn't know the director either. And he made everyone wait. We didn't start. We waited for this kid. And the director let the kid pull his sax out. He sat down behind his music stand, and he walked up to him, and he put his finger in his face. And he goes, don't ever forget this. He goes, when you're early, you're on time. When you're on time, you're late. And when you're late, you're fired. Now get the fuck out of here.
Oh,
you're out of here. And the kid started crying, and he grabbed his sax, and he left. And he did bring the kid back, and it was fine. But I was just like, I never forgot that.
Yeah.
If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're fired. And I've lived my life like that. And I've told all my friends that 1 billion times.
Yeah.
I'm like, my kids know the motto. You know what I mean? Because it's true. It's like if someone says show up at 6 o'clock and you show up at 6, you're late.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You don't show up at 6.
Show up at 5:45,
right.
5:50.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's like, and I've lived my life. But I think people, that aren't punctual, that kills them. Especially when you're being hired by someone. When you're not the band leader.
Because it's like disrespectful.
Everyone else showed up on time.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
Seriously.
And I think that
a big part of my sobriety has been being punctual. It's like that's a new thing. I used to roll up at work, like I'd be on air at 10 a.m. and I would pull into my parking spot at like 9:58, 9:59 to go do a break at like 10:03.
Yeah.
And like that's insane to me now.
Yeah. Oh,
now, to me now, that's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
I come in so early for work, you know, it's like,
Well,
so.
people don't want to be stressed out going,
No,
where are you?
I
Like,
don't-
you don't want to be someone's liability.
No, and I don't want to be stressed out because
Yeah.
I want to go on the air and I want to be calm and collected and I want to know what I want to say and like
Yeah.
all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just set yourself up for success, you know?
That's right. Yeah, and have accountability for yourself and all your actions, and you know, try and be the best person you can be. I know
Yeah.
that sounds cliched and
Yeah.
stupid. But
No, but it's true.
It's true.
Well, I'm so happy that you came in to talk to me. This
Me
has been
too.
so much fun.
It's been awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, totally. Looking forward to seeing you in July on the Hell Omega tour.
Heck yeah.
And
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
yeah, this was so cool. I feel
Yeah.
like you know, new buds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Thanks.
really, really nice to
Likewise.
meet you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right, thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Woo.